Hi, everybody. Welcome. So glad to have you here today. It's a Monday for us. I don't know what day it is for you, but glad you're here. Thank you for joining. If this is your first time, if you're a return listener, thank you for coming back. Today, we're going to talk about something that I think is mission critical. A lot of our audience, they're folks who work in somewhere in the healthcare sector. Some folks are in leadership, some folks aren't. But whether you own your own practice, you work in a hospital, you are a group practice owner, the culture, and we're going to define what that means because that's a term that gets tossed around. We're going to talk about what exactly that is. But the culture of your practice, the culture of your institution, has so much to do with how things function, how things get done, how satisfied people are, how dissatisfied people are. Change or the inability to make change, it really can be mission critical. So we're going to dig into that today with our lovely guest, Brie Chrisman. She is the founder and CEO of Bosco, an operations management company that works 100% virtually. Lucky you. Although, folks, if you see me in person, I'm very happy to see you in person. But with over 15 years of experience in the project management and operations field, Bree has taken a different approach to making an impact on business. She has revolutionized the way businesses operate by introducing the solution for overwhelm for CEOs. Her commitment to a human-first approach has led her to serve CEOs in the mental health field. Now, folks, if you own your own practice and you're an N of one, you're your own CEO. If you have one person working for you, you're a CEO. If you have a whole group practice, you're a CEO. What does that mean? Chief Executive Officer, Chief Decision Maker. I used to call myself Chief Cook and Bottle Washer. Call yourself what you want. But the CEO is where the buck stops. So, welcome, Brie Chrisman. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Margot. That was a fantastic segue into our conversation. I feel like there's so many conversations I have with therapy owner or therapy practice owners that are like, well, I don't run a business. I just own a therapy practice. I'm like, same thing. Business is not inherently good or bad. It doesn't have to feel icky. It doesn't have to feel, like you're a sleazy slumlord or anything. It's just it's just something that you have. And a therapy practice is a business. You provide a service, you take a payment, whether it's insurance or cash or whatever. And yeah, it's you run a business and that's okay. And it's amazing. And we're going to celebrate it and celebrate you with the culture conversation we're going to have today.
Oh, fabulous. That's great. And this is a space you're familiar with. I mean, we're going to talk about company culture. And believe me, I hear therapists say, I don't ever want to work for a corporation. We're all incorporated. We all have corporations. I mean,
Hmm.
right? It doesn't, all of these terms, CEO, business, corporate, they do not have to be bad. The
Yeah,
culture is what you make of it.
exactly.
So can you just define that? It's kind of a squishy term, I think, especially for therapists. We like to know what that means. What are you when you're talking about culture, what do you mean?
When I think about culture, first of all, let me put the question back on you, Margot. When someone just says the word culture, what do you think of? You think of people, right?
Hmm.
You think of
Yeah.
people, you think of how they interact, how they observe different environments, different holidays, how people, you know, food and music and stories and, everything that makes up a people. And so that really it still translates into business. Your company culture is how people feel in your company, how things work, how things operate, how you communicate, what your brand is. If you have an office, people should walk in, patients, clients should walk in and feel that culture, feel if your culture is inclusivity and kindness, they should feel that with bright colors and flags and just all books and all of the things that make them feel comfortable. If your culture is clinical superiority, clinical, prowess, maybe there's more educational books, maybe there's, I don't know, puzzles or something on your tables. I mean, just giving that environment feel, and then also your operations. Everything,
Mm.
if you ever hear me talk to the people listening, you will always hear me talking operations because I love it. And also, that's everything comes back to it. How you interact with people, how you take payment, how you onboard your clinicians, how you run your practice is your company culture. And so it's not just about the standard, it's not just about your environment, it's about your company values, your company mission, your vision, what your goals are for the future. And that all comes back to human, what we talk about, and I'm sure we'll talk about more during our conversation today, is about that human first leadership and human first way of doing things. And so you always have a lens that you do things through, right? You have that, um, your life's experience is your lens, but for your company, it doesn't really have a life experience because it's a company. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. So having the lenses that you are making your decisions through and creating your company through is really your vision, your mission, your values, your culture. And so every decision you make, every way of doing things in your business should be through those lenses. And we love to see practices that use that human first lens and really look at, if my culture is, so for Bosco, let me just, instead of using hypotheticals, our company values and our lenses that we look through are collaboration, communication, trust, inclusivity. And we, any decision we make, any choice we make as a company, any client we decide to work with, we use our whole chest through those values to make
Ooh,
those decisions because that is who we are and that is what we stand for and
ooh,
that is how we operate. I feel like that was a super long answer, but
it's a
that's I could
great,
go on and on and on.
your whole chest.
Whole chest.
I love that. That's great. So,
Yes.
yeah, I think as therapists, we think of ourselves as highly relational, generally kind, people
Yes.
first people. So, where are practice owners potentially getting tripped up in terms of their own culture?
Yeah, it's so when you get into, and I want to preface everything I say with, I am not a therapist. I was not trained as a therapist. I was trained in operations and project management. However, I also have been working with therapists for professionally for the last 6 years, personally, a whole lot longer than that.
Good,
So
good for you.
we have really figured out how to support therapists in their companies, whether it is, just the standard day-to-day little things or the bigger tasks, the bigger projects, the company culture, helping support that. And what we find is when therapists start their own practice, they have these ideals of, I don't want to work. And most therapists we talk to that own their own practice, whether it's solo or group, they are amazing human beings. They are amazing at what they do. And they are starting a practice because they want to support people in a certain way. And they've seen it done ways that they don't like, that aren't conducive to healing or conducive to their self-care and their lifestyle. Because we all know there's a whole lot of companies and organizations, especially when you're pre-licensed, that take advantage and pay
Mhm,
pennies on the dollar, and that's not a life that you can live sustainably. And so
mhm,
you want to create a company that you can thrive in while also doing what you love to do. And so that's amazing. And companies can't just be built and run off ideals. And so that's when all of the business things come in. You have to run payroll for yourself or for a team. You have to do the HR stuff. You have to deal with admin. You have to deal with billing issues, whether it's fee for service or insurance. There's so many hats that you're wearing, you get overwhelmed. And then you're realizing that you want to pay a certain rate to clinicians because you want to be that person that can change the way that therapists are paid and the way they live, and you're realizing well, the numbers don't add up, and so then you have to figure out a different way, and then you get stressed out in that area and so on and so forth, and there's so many different stressors of being a business owner, a practice owner. And I think that's kind of where the culture kind of gets shoved to the side because you're just on the hamster wheel and you're just trying to make it work and you're just trying to keep the practice going. And it happens, it's not just industry specific, it happens to everybody. And it's, you almost lose your way. You lose that piece of who you are that made you want to start the practice in the first place. And so a lot of that comes down to, we've seen it, people who are amazing therapists and amazing bosses that start to be micromanaging and that start to just want to burn it all down or want to just sell the practice and go live as a goat farmer in the mountains. Just,
That's
you
sounding
know,
kind of good.
I
Yeah.
know, right? Right. Or, go do retreats in Bali a couple times a year.
Really?
That would be
Okay.
that would be 100% what I would choose if were in the position to choose.
Right.
But yeah, it really comes down to that sense of having to do it all and losing that vision, that lens. That lens gets a
Mhm.
little foggy. And
Mhm.
it's really hard because then that creates a negative company culture. And it's so hard to come back from that. It's possible, but it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. A lot of times it takes a lot of outside perspective, outside help, which is where we come in a lot of the times.
Mhm.
And yeah, I'm sure that there's so many people listening to this right now that are nodding their head. They're like, yep, I've either been
Mhm.
there or I've worked for someone that's like that, and it's not fun.
Mhm.
And, but there is, if you are there and you're like, oh my gosh, how do I turn it around? It's totally possible. It totally is. And if you're stressed out and you haven't gotten there yet, if you do get there, it's okay. And if not, we'll talk about more of ways that, to keep your healthy company culture.
Well, I love that. Right. So, right, because we started out with where do things go wrong? I mean, typical therapist question, what's not working? Um,
Yeah.
and so what you're describing, so some people might be starting and they want to build a healthy culture,
Hmm.
right? But the truth of the matter is, and I'm glad we started there,
Hmm.
because right, these are for a lot of folks, this is their pain point. We start out with good intentions. We want to be the therapist and the practice owner who will treat people fairly, and then people overpay. They
Yeah.
overpay their therapists, and then they don't have good margins.
Yeah.
That's a real problem. In the mental health field, we have not gotten an appreciable raise from an insurance company in 15 years. Everybody's rent goes up. Everybody wants an increase in their percentage or in their hourly rate. Everything costs more. So,
Hmm.
to your point, I think especially last year when things were such a squeeze, there was this huge windfall of clients during the pandemic, and now people are having to go out looking and
Yeah.
having to start marketing again, and their margins feel even tighter. So once
Yeah.
somebody is there, you said they can recover. What have you
Yeah.
observed? What has been helpful? And folks, if you're not there yet, this can be a cautionary tale of things
Yes.
to watch out for. But how can people recover if they've gotten to that point?
Yeah. That is a great question because that feeling like, oh my gosh, I just need to quit because there's no coming back from it. And that's not true. That is absolutely not true. It comes back to structure and everything. I feel like sometimes I am giving therapy to my therapists, which is
Mhm.
hilarious, but I'm like, these are things you teach your clients, and I'm just going to repeat it back to you. It's the same thing.
Mhm.
Structure creates freedom.
Mhm.
That those operations, having streamlined operations, not only will they save you money, they'll streamline things, they'll standardize things so that way you know where things are falling off. And that was very vague. So let me give a quick example.
Great.
Client intake. I talk about client intake all the time. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to tackle. If you have, say, two admin people, or if you have, you're doing it and your clinical director is doing it, whoever, and you're not sending follow-up emails in the same cadence at the same time. You're not sending the same information each time. Clinicians aren't doing discovery calls or, consult calls the same way. You're not scheduling people the same way. Things fall through the cracks. You can't figure out where people are falling off either if you don't have a standard process. So once we
Mhm.
come in, we standardize that process, we figure out everyone gets a follow-up email after, this day and this day and this day. We typically send hot tip. If people don't respond after the first follow-up, they'll typically respond after the third,
Mm.
which is something that we have seen across industries, honestly, because
Mm.
you think about it, when someone's, reaching out to you, you see the follow-up, you're like, "Ugh, I don't have time for that." You see the second one, shoot, I got to do that. And then the third one, you're like, oh crap, let me do that right now. So that way I don't forget. Same thing with, therapy
Mm.
follow-ups. It's you're not bugging them. They're the ones that reached out to you.
Right.
So don't be afraid to send follow-up emails. Send the follow-up emails. Make sure that you have that standard rhythm of, okay, we're going to have the consult, and then the clinician will send a follow-up email, and then admin will take it from there, and so on and so forth. Whatever your
Mm.
process is. If once you have that standardized and everyone, clients and admin are getting the same process going, you'll start to see patterns of, okay, for this clinician, people are ghosting after the consult. Okay,
Mm.
that's really good to know. What's going on in that consult call that we need to figure out and tweak? People
Mhm.
are falling off after the first inquiry. Okay, are we sending follow-up emails? Do we need to follow up quicker, more frequently, however? So you start to see the gaps in your process. And so what that equates to, once you're able to fill those holes and fix those cracks and those gaps, is that you're able to provide support to clients better. They feel supported through the entire journey. Your team knows what's going on, so they can be more productive, more efficient, which saves you money. You are onboarding more clients because you know where the gaps are. So they're following through that sales process, and it is a sales process, to be completely frank. I mean, it sounds really icky, but if you just look at it black and white on paper, it is a sales funnel. And
Mhm.
so if you can get them all the way through from inquiry to onboarding, that's more clients coming in. That's less leads you have to go out and get. That's more money coming into you, coming into your clinicians. Generally, that supportive process too leads to lower churn rates, which means that, again, that's less clients you have to bring in. So the return on investment is higher. I mean, there's just so many advantages to just streamlining that one process.
Mm.
And from a bottom line standpoint for your financials, but also from a client support and clinician support framework. And so having that structure creates the freedom. So something that we focus on a lot in the past year or so is clinician onboarding, because when you figure clinicians, it takes upwards of 6 months to get a full caseload. When you're running a group practice, until they get hit that ideal number, whatever it's 12, 15 clients a week, whatever it is, they're not bringing in money until that point for the practice. You're paying them for training and for all the things, but your return on investment doesn't hit until they hit that magic number. And so that is draining your finances, which it's a part of running a practice. So once your clinicians have that magic number, they're bringing in money, that's great. But what happens if they don't have that? What happens if they don't get the support they need in those first few months? Having that, your churn rate's going to go for your churn rate for your clinicians is going to go up. You're going to have turnover, and every single person that turns over is going to be that much more time it takes and that much more money out of your pocket, especially
Mhm.
when the industry average is 1 to 2 years of clinicians staying at a practice.
Yeah.
And even if you do have an amazing turnover rate, it's very minimal, and you hire pre-licensed clinicians, typically you're only going to have them for 3 years-ish. So you need to really maximize that time. And so if you can put a process in place that is cultivating that security, that safety, that support, knowing that they have backing from their clinical director, from their supervisor, from whomever in the practice, knowing that someone has their back, knowing that someone is giving them the training they need. And it doesn't have to be one-on-one training, because no one has time for that. No one has money for that. That can look like a 7-day dripped email campaign where you get an email a day welcoming them to the practice, giving them the tech stack, telling them where, the employee handbooks are and all of that. You know, having that dripped out so that way also they have something to do for their first week, not just one day. It's not just, here's a giant book of information, have fun, we'll talk to you in a week. That's
Mm.
not helpful for any business, and especially in a company or in a setting like therapy practices where you aren't coming in with a full caseload. You have to fill their time somehow. And so we have seen in practices where we've instilled that and implemented that, and the return on investment is so huge, and the growth for the practice is so huge. And the turnover rate, we've seen turnover rates go from like 40% to 3% in just a handful of years. And so
Wow.
that just from that supportive, and also, I mean, we tweak the intake process, we tweak the interview process, making sure they're a culture fit as well.
Mhm.
But that having that support and having those structures in place, having that process in place, just again, it goes back to human first. Like, if you're a human being, how do you want to be treated? With respect, with dignity, with equity, with equality? You want people to treat you like you're a human and to give you the benefit of the doubt, to empower you to be your best self. And when you do that, it comes back to you in spades.
Hmm. Brie, that's wonderful. And to your point, the culture is reflected through the operations and the systems,
Yes.
right? Having those doesn't rob you of culture or
Yeah.
rob you of freedom or rob people of dignity. It's quite the opposite. It's like
Yes.
we know what to expect. We aren't constantly wondering. It's not a mystery. That
Yes.
creates a sense of instability. You want to
Yeah.
create in your kindness, in your generosity, in your human first. That really is a great way to do it. So, do you function as like a fractional COO for people, chief operations officer? What does Boss Code do to actually
Great.
support people in that?
Yeah.
Because you said you work with folks. So what do you do?
Yes, great question. So we only work with mental health practices now. And so we are able to go deeper into that HR side, deeper into the analytics side, making sure the numbers match and can help you thrive. So our main service is operations management. So it's kind of like if you think about like your food pyramid, you have your practice owner up here, and then you have your operations manager here. Sometimes clinical director is on the same level. And then underneath you have your admin, your clinicians, your outside contractors, your biller, things like that. And so we're not leading strategy. We're not leading the whole vision. We're not creating the plan for the vision, but we are helping implement it by managing the teams who do it and jumping in as needed. We're basically that like I said, that mid-level management that is almost a stopgap for the practice owner so that they're not the chief question answerer. Like, whenever I hear that a practice owner is in answering questions in scheduling, like, please stop. That is not your job. That is not, if caveat, if you are a solo practice owner, obviously, yes, that is something that you have to do because you are wearing all the hats or you have a small team. But when and our primary audience that we work with for our operations management is group practices that have 10, 15, 20, 30 clinicians. So in that aspect, in that arena, no owner, no practice owner should be answering admin questions. That's just not, it's not where your expertise lie. That's not where your strengths lie. And that's when we go into, if you read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, your zone of excellence and your zone of genius. Yeah, you could be amazing at answering emails in the scheduling and admin inbox. That's not your zone of genius. That's not why you grew this amazing practice. So get out. And
Yep.
we always say it with love. We're like, we love you. You're amazing. Stop.
That's right.
And you got to,
Yes.
those boundaries. And so that's our main service. We also provide consulting for smaller practices, solo practice owners. And then we are starting, it's on our website right now, but we haven't really done a whole lot of it just because we're fleshing it out still. But we wanted people to kind of know about it. But starting in a few months into 2027 is we're going to be starting an actual fractional practice director service. And so that is really standing with the practice owner, either for those practices that are 30 plus clinicians that need to be out of the day to day, that just want to be the visionary or go on a book tour or
Mhm.
do those retreats in Bali or become a goat farmer but want to still have a thriving practice.
Mhm.
We step in as that day to day person that's running the operations so the practice owner doesn't have to anymore.
Mm.
So that's that higher level. And then you still have the ops manager that needs to have the pulse on the day to day and everything. But this fractional practice director position would really be that person that is making sure the entire system, the entire practice is churning correctly. And the great thing about that is it's fractional. And so you're only paying for the time that, and I know fractional, it's like a buzzword nowadays because but that's where kind of the economy is going because no one can afford bread, let alone a COO.
Maybe they don't need it.
And they don't need it. Exactly. You should not have to be paying six plus figures plus a huge benefits package and everything when you can be paying five figures for the exact same thing and getting probably not better results, but I mean, when you have someone that's doing it day in, day out, that is trained as a COO with experience in mental health, it's so different than having someone that was trained as a therapist that got operations expertise. And so
Mm.
not doubting anyone. I know there are amazing practice directors out there that went that route. And we know that there's a reason that we are growing. And it's because there's not really anyone else supporting practices like we are at Bosco. And so we are really seeing where the gaps are, just like we talked about. You're seeing where the gaps are. We're trying to close those gaps, close those breaks, and be able to provide services that really support practices from the operations side. So that is that culture as well.
Mm. I love that. I'll tell you, when I'm consulting with practice owners, it is the number one thing we need to work on, which is letting somebody else who has better training, already has this understanding, step in and do this level of work so that you
Yes.
can be, as Gay Hendricks says, in your zone of genius, which is
Yes.
not pushing buttons often.
Yes,
So,
exactly.
Bree, this is great information. If you had to give us your top three suggestions for a practice owner who's saying, okay, uh, I give, uncle, I need that, right? Enough. I cannot do this all. What would you say those top three suggestions would be?
Great question. Selfishly, I would say call Bosco
100%.
or someone else that knows what they're doing. I'm going to say this again with my whole chest. You are amazing at what you do as a therapist. You got into this to be a therapist, to provide care and provide support to people that need it. That doesn't automatically equate to being a great business owner. And so the strongest thing, and I'm sure, Margot, how many times have you said this to clients or to your clinicians or supervisees or whoever? The strongest thing you can do is ask for help.
Oh, yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
that goes the same if the colored kids have no shoes,
Mm-hmm.
things like that.
Yep.
We are hardest on ourselves to
Mm-hmm.
ask for help. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing that you can do for yourself is ask for help, and that might be asking someone in your network of, hey, I have no idea what I'm doing. Can we just get coffee once a month and just complain to each other and commiserate and just because on in person, because frankly that's where ideas come out. Oh my gosh, I met this person the other day, I need to connect you to them. That's connection and people and human first communication and leadership. It makes you flourish in so many different ways. So
Mm-hmm.
asking for help, whether that's hiring a new biller, whether that's hiring someone like Bosco, whether that's just talking to a friend that's in the same situation, whether that's honestly in your personal life too, whether that's getting grocery delivery instead of going to the grocery store so you can just have like your brain space, save up money honestly, I hate vacuuming, hate it. And my husband has found this website it's like a Amazon resell bidding place so he can get stuff for super cheap, and we got this super swanky robot vacuum that also mops. And so it does our whole downstairs, which is like 1,000 square feet. It vacuums every day and it mops a couple times a week. And I don't have to do anything. And it's scheduled. So I don't even have to turn it on. It's
What? Okay,
right.
please send me that. But
I
that's
will.
brilliant, right? Save up your
But
money and do something that helps you be able to
yes,
have more bandwidth and space.
that mental space. You could have an entire episode just on mental capacity and decision fatigue, but that's a conversation for a
Let's
different
do
day.
it. Let's
But
do it.
things like that, that is asking for help. That whole thing was number one. Number two is realizing that confidence comes from clarity. And so, just like what you said, Margot, earlier about knowing what to expect, it's the same thing. As a business owner, we are literally flying the plane while we build it. And it is a lot of times we'll drop pieces and they just go floating down, floating down to the ground, and we're never going to get them back.
Right.
And that's okay. We'll just figure out a different way to make it. And so, that is hard. It is truly hard. And I also want you to hear this too, is that entrepreneurship, business ownership, therapy ownership is hard. It feels
Yeah.
hard because it is hard. And that is okay. And so surrounding yourself with people, it helps provide that clarity. And knowing that it's okay to feel like this sucks sometimes. And
That's right.
it's, the more clarity you have when things go sideways, the more clarity you have around your structure, your operations, the more confidence you will have because you're not going willy-nilly and just making it up as you go every single day. You have things written down, you have processes. And so the confidence comes after that clarity.
So the clarity helps, the processes help
Yes.
bolster the culture that we know we want.
Yes.
We know we want it. We know that works. We are people, and we know
Yes.
that. So, to your point, boy, this really can be the path to getting the culture that you really long for your clinicians. And then,
Exactly.
in our practice, our organizational chart is inverted. It's not
Yes.
a
The
me at the
tree.
top, and right, it's the tree. Exactly. It's the
Yes.
tree. So, right. So that is what you're talking about. I would love to have you come
Yes.
back sometime and talk about that
Yeah.
next piece if you would be open to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be
Absolutely.
lovely. Well, Brie Chrisman, thank you so much for joining us today. CEO, founder of Bosco Operations Management Company. Please connect. What is the best way for people to find you?
Our website honestly is the best because we have tons of blog posts, information galore. We don't gatekeep. So heybosco.com. And then you can find us on LinkedIn, typically is where we hang out the most. And then Instagram at hey_Bosco as well.
Lovely. Well, folks, please check that out. And thank you for checking us out today. Thank you for joining us, Brie Chrisman, and everyone who has been listening. Come back again next time. Be well.